Business can be a lonely game, but it doesn't have to be. Welcome to Boutique Chat, where we explore community over competition and how to scale your company with the balance and the happiness that we all seek. We'll hear from product-based businesses of all types, retailers, e-commerce, and wholesale brands, along with industry experts shaping the future of our industry. I'm your host, Ashley Alderson from the Boutique Hub, and I can't wait to chat. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast this week. This is going to be such a good episode, Kelly. I'm so glad that you're here. Since I've had a chance to meet you and visit with you, I think just on a random Zoom call, we emailed each other and said, we should just really visit, get to know each other. I've been looking forward to this conversation ever since. So thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. This is my first podcast ever. So I'm just, I'm really excited. I've kind of grown my company in the shadows, and now I'm ready to step out and share some of all of the journey. So this is exciting.
Well, you have an incredible journey to share. So I'm so lucky I get to be the first one to bring this to everyone. I know so many people listening, especially in the apparel space, know your company and admire your company. You've built something absolutely incredible. But I think they're going to be shocked to hear your backstory today. So let's jump into it. Let's start there. Talk to me about the earliest version of you getting started in business. How'd that go?
Yeah, absolutely. The company started, I stayed at home with my kids for 8 years. And if you've read my story online just a little bit, after I had my daughter, she was 6 months old, I decided to try to make a product. And like so many entrepreneurs, started in the kitchen. I think I went a little harder in the beginning than some people. I ended up losing my house about 6 months into the company, made some very bad inventory decisions. My business partner at the time, she was funding the company and decided that she was all done funding the company when the bills came due. And so we had to sell the house and move out with 3 kids. And I just thought I had made the biggest mistake of my life, and was trying just to pay back the debt and to get out of this and go back to being a stay-at-home mom. And in that, a 2-year process of trying to pay off the debt, I realized that I actually liked the industry and I liked creating and making product and figured it out. I did cash out the 401k before that happened. So I got in a lot of trouble early and learned and failed fast. And then I just started from the bottom, and the amount of things that happened in the first 8 years is really unbelievable. I had 2 big key accounts go out of business on me with 6 figures of bills that I had to cover, that they didn't pay. So it's been a journey, but all of the trials have they haven't been fun, but they've made me who I am. And I'm excited to share some of those lessons that I've learned.
Man, some rising phoenix moments for sure. We've got to go back to, I know we could spend like 4 hours probably talking about this story on its own, but I've got to go back to the very first, you losing your house. Yeah. There had to be a lot that went into that. A lot of decisions you had to make. You could have filed bankruptcy. You could have walked away. You could have said, I'm not going to continue. There could have been a lot of other scenarios, but you chose to stay in it and fight. Well, what got you through those moments? How did you make those decisions when you were, right from the start up against the wall?
Yeah. So I knew, honestly, that was just the first problem I faced in business, but that was a big one. But it really, honestly, that feeling of I have a problem. What am I going to do about it? How can I fix this? What is the way out? Has been consistent through 13 years. It's the same feeling. You feel it in your gut. You feel it in your stomach. You feel it in the lump in your throat. And for me, I knew we had equity in our house, and I knew it was physically, I knew we could rebuild the house. I knew I would. I just needed some time to figure it out. So I think I'm a really stubborn person. And I looked around at the people in the industry that were, established. And I really thought, if they could figure this out, I know I can figure this out. I just need time. And I need to believe in myself. And, I was lucky enough to have a husband who looked at me and said, you're going to figure this out. We're going to move. I'm going to rebuild a house, and I'm going to give you the time to do it. And I don't know if it was just the fight in me, but I was just determined that if they can figure it out, if you want it bad enough, you can find a way. And I wanted it because I didn't want to. I think part of me felt like I owed that to my husband because he was so loyal, but I also owed it to myself. And I wanted to prove them wrong. And I wanted to prove it to myself that I could do it.
I feel like I'm talking to myself right now. We have so many similarities in our journey. It is eerie to hear you talk about this, but incredible. Okay, so someone else is starting right now from scratch and they're like, "Oh crap, I don't want that to happen to me." What would you have done different to avoid that in the first place?
You have to have proof of like concept. Like the market has to like what you're making. Like you should not just, in my opinion, open a store and order a ton of product, or start a company and order a ton of product, and without understanding like how is the market going to respond to this. Like you need feedback.
Yeah,
You do not know everything, and I just was so naive that I thought if I make it, people will buy it, and they wanted to give me their opinion on everything.
yeah,
So that's what I would say is proof of concept, market feedback,
yeah.
lots and lots of feedback.
Yeah, I so true. Minimum viable product. So when you decided, okay, here we go, we're building back. I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. What were the first most important steps you took just to get some traction and get moving in the right direction?
Well, getting out of bed started. In the beginning, I was depressed when all that happened. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just going to be real. I think I went to America's Mart and understanding, why people buy, like, and just talking to people. And if they said no, like, no, I don't like that product. Well, I mean, I just was so naive. I'm like, well, why? Like, well, who are you buying it from? Like, well, what price does it need to be? Well, what color should it have been? Like, why should the straps be different, or is it too short, or all those questions, and not having an ego about that really honestly is what got me going. And then unfortunately I was kind of stuck with the product that I had paid for even when I was getting this great
Mm,
feedback. So I had to grind. I mean, I sold out of my car, we sold at schools, we sold on Facebook, and really just not having an ego and working my butt off to get rid of it. And then eventually at some point, I got to the point where I couldn't give it away after 2 years. And then that's when I donated it, and started making the second round of product.
yeah. So into that second round of product, I mean, by that point, you had a ton of feedback. You had hustled,
Yeah.
you'd figured some things out, you talked to a lot of people. And that's a necessary part of business. I got to just pause on this for a second. I'm sure you would agree. I mean, I love like ease and abundance and everything has its place, but I think every entrepreneur would agree there's also that period where you're like, I just got to make stuff happen. I just have to
Yeah.
hustle and figure it out.
Mhm.
So, into that next round of product, you had all this feedback. What was your vision at that point? How did you finally start to get that traction to something actually working?
Well, I realized that there was a niche. I knew I couldn't compete against everybody in the industry because I had so much to learn. But I saw that anything faith based, inspirational gift, there wasn't a lot of people doing it.
Hmm.
So for me, I saw a gap in the market and knew I could capitalize on it because I knew who my competitors were in that space.
Yeah.
And so I knew that there would be a ceiling on that, because how many, you can only buy so many inspirational mugs, so many Bible covers, before you just, you don't need any more. It's not like apparel where you're switching out 4 times a year. But I saw a window for me to get the company to a certain point and establish myself as a brand in that space. So I mean, for your listeners, maybe figuring out where is that gap, what is that pain point in the market, what are people looking for that they can't find everywhere, or the place where you have the least amount of competitors,
Hmm.
and you can stand out and get a foot there. And that's what I did. And eventually I had to rebrand. I don't know if you know that, but I started off as scripture art,
Oh,
um, and we made all inspirational gift, and our name was scripture art. But year 4 into the company, I realized people were walking by my booth and walking by and not looking at the company because they had an opinion about what the brand was, and they wanted us to make more. And I had to rebrand year 4 into the company. And just being willing to see that and
hmm.
know that it's okay to change and pivot and even change your name if it's not working, um, really helped me to adapt and grow the company through pain points.
So good. So, where did Mary Square come from?
So Mary is my grandmother's name.
Okay.
Um, and Square, I spent a summer in Russell Square, and I just love the essence of like a community, a gathering place.
Yeah.
And so, anywhere my grandmother was, I wanted to be. So I felt like Mary Square was a really warm, welcoming, natural name that people would remember, and it was easy.
Yeah, perfect. So into that rebrand, um, obviously then you started into apparel shortly after that. How did you switch from like the gift, the scripture, the art, then into Mary Square and into apparel?
Well, part of it's just because I have a little ADD with product and I love making things and I love a challenge. And once I figured out mugs and I figured out this, I was like, well, can I figure out apparel? And
Yeah.
for those of you out there, apparel has a high barrier to entry. I mean, with
Mhm.
sizing and fitting and tech packs and patterns and all of that, I did not know what I did not know. And so, but I knew the market. I knew that if I was going to grow this company and I was going to be sustainable and I was going to be a brand, I had to get into some type of a consumable. Because, like I said, you can only buy so many Bible covers and the market's only so big for that. And apparel feels like a consumable because I'm always changing with seasons and styles and trends and all that kind of stuff. So, I thought that it would be a way to really get repeated customers, and I loved it. So it
Mhm.
felt like a natural like place for me to go.
So good. So the way that you have really set yourself out, in my opinion, a couple things I can think of, but one of the biggest is your prints. So how did you
Hmm.
get into this idea of my prints are going to be unique? You have several prints that are trademarked, right, and protected.
Yeah, well, and every single one of our prints is original, and it's done in house. And I was just in the office yesterday, and the whole entire conference room was just like prints
It's
everywhere.
so
It's
cool.
really fun. Um, I just, I felt like originality has and creativity
Mhm.
has always been like two of my huge cornerstones. And I don't like the idea of buying prints in the market that you might see out and then another company has their brand name on it. And I
Yeah.
think, I just wanted to create something special and unique and original and provide that value for the end consumer that they know when they have a Mary Square or Michelle McDowell dress on, that it was made by this group of women in Apex, North Carolina, hand drawn, and just the thought and attention and detail and the originality that went into it. And they don't have to worry that it's going to end up in a big box store.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I think about the industry even today, man, apparel has changed. There's so much,
Mhm.
and gift too, really. Like there's just so much fast fashion. There's so much when it comes to like low end jewelry, that sort of thing. You've really maintained with both brands this idea of value, this idea of quality, this idea that you can't get it everywhere else. How have you seen that really, take hold in a lot of these stores that are realizing I don't need to be fast. I need to be, sustainable and have quality. Do you see that that's really where our industry is headed?
Yeah, I think I ask myself, every day, I don't want to use other brands' names, but there's so many brands that are just like made in a factory floor in China. And then they hire like one designer and then they end up next to our product in boutiques,
Yeah.
and um, it makes it hard. It makes it hard to compete. But I am constantly trying to ask myself and ask my team. And I've got like really big plans for 2025 for this. I'm really excited about it. The value that I want to infuse in the product and like is the sizing, is the consistency in sizing,
Mhm.
and the originality in prints and like what the brand stands for. And little things like we have a big activewear line that's all UPF 50 and the material is like wrinkle free. It's pretty much indestructible. And so just providing like we're doing some fun things with the brand in 2025 and I don't want to reveal too much, but that's going to help the stores be able to tell their customers even more about some of the value of the product. But we're never going to compete on the lowest price.
Mhm.
We can't, we're never going to play that game, but we will play the game of infusing value into the product and making the consumer feel so good and delighted like inside and out with the brand and their purchase.
Yeah. It definitely, when you're just in the space of your brand, when I'm in your booth at market, right? Or when I see stores carry your product, it just really does. You've done a great job of creating a brand that has that emotional reaction in people. You know the quality,
Well,
you
thank
know the
you.
experience that you're going to have. So, I mean, listening to all of this, listening to this far in your journey, and looking back at all the roller coasters that have got you here, what would your advice be to someone who's listening and they're stuck, they've hit rock bottom, they've had a huge issue. What do you do when nothing is working and you have to feel like you're rebuilding from the start again? What's your advice for those listening?
So you got to understand why it's not working. Like that's the first thing. And I can tell you, there's been specific times like throughout the journey, I where I've gotten feedback that has been really
Mm.
hard to hear, because I doubled down on something, or, I invested in a team of sales reps, and I felt like I gave them everything, and they were like, you're not doing it right. You need to give us this. And you have to be willing to listen and figure out why. I mean, I've gotten on the phone with store owners and been like, why didn't it sell through? And, like in the beginning, and they would say some hard things to hear. And I am a sensitive person. I know even at this level, I still am sensitive. And I've had to learn that, it's okay. It is okay, but you got to figure out the why. And then you have to be willing to fix it, and you have to be willing to put your ego aside, and you have to be willing to test. You have to be willing to try so many different things, and sometimes at the same time, and not be attached to the outcome. It's not failure. It's always just curiosity. I like try to approach everything from a curious state.
Mhm.
If we did this, would this work? Could we do that? And if you're trying four things, three of them aren't working most of the time.
Mhm.
That's good. You're getting knowledge. So I would say, if you feel like something is not working, figure out why, figure out 10 solves for it, try them all.
Mhm.
If none of them work, go back to the drawing board again and seek advice. Figure out the rules to the game. Figure out how everyone else did it, and then don't do it that way. Do it the way that works for you, but understand the rules. That has helped me so much. I understood America's Mart. I understood how other companies do it, and I would figure out weaknesses in their processes and change those to
Mm.
make my customers and my business more efficient.
Yeah.
Is that good? Is that enough? Because I could keep going on that all day.
I think that those things are all so good. And what I heard you say earlier too, and you've highlighted this a few times in things that you've said, is looking for gaps in the market, looking for gaps
Mm,
in your competitor space. What can you do different than everyone else? And I think sometimes in this industry, there's a tendency to say, this is working for her, so I'm going to do that too. Versus what you said, this is what no one's doing. So it's kind of like the red ocean versus blue ocean
yeah.
philosophy, right? Like, and I feel like that with the boutique hub. When I got into this, it was a completely blue ocean. Nobody was
Yes.
supporting boutiques. Nobody was supporting brands. There was no community, wide open blue. But then all of a sudden we're here and it's like sharks come around, right? Like there's blood in the water. Oh, there's something to feed on here. And so people start to take pieces of your product and process and knock it off. And now pretty soon it's a red ocean. For those of you who don't understand the analogy, but that's what you're really good at, is you're finding the little pockets of blue and you're capitalizing on those before anyone else does. Is that right?
That's 100% it, because everything that's being done is being done. You get to the next level when you figure out what's not being done.
Yeah.
And that's where you can really set yourself apart and constantly evolve. And then if people copy you, they're copying what you've already done. They don't know what's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you ain't first, you're last. Old Ricky Bobby. That's it.
That's right.
That's the idea. And why I mentioned just even, Sheen or Timu and everyone going on this affordable journey. You're going to only continue to set yourself apart when you go this higher end route and the route that nobody else is going. We've got to
Mhm.
continue to move that direction.
It's here. It's time. Are you ready to start planning 2025? Well, you might have your own day planner. You might have a Google Calendar, but let me tell you, I love planning with the official Boutique Boss Planner. The Boutique Boss Planner is a day planner that we created here at the Boutique Hub several years ago, created by boutique owners for boutique owners, and it's more than a day planner. Inside of the Boutique Boss Planner is not only your opportunity to operate with a normal day planner with your hours and your time blocks, but it's also a boutique owner's go-to resource. Inside, there's inventory tracking, social media tracking, monthly reminders and to-do lists, all kinds of information on how to host a month in review to really track what worked and what didn't in your business this month, but also a planning sheet on how to get ready for the next month in your business. Even if you're going to market, even if you're getting ready for social media content, there's tools, tips, and ideas and checklists to keep you on track and organized all year long inside of the Boutique Boss Planner. So check out the link in the show notes for access to the 2025 Boutique Boss Planner, or visit boutiquebossstore.com.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. Something else that I know along your journey, not only have you overcome all kinds of ups and downs and battles and continue to reinvent yourself, but I feel like once you've hit a certain level in your business, there's a misconception that like, oh, you've made it. You've
Mhm.
arrived. You've gotten this far. Look at how successful she is. Like, what could she possibly worry about now? But I think you and I both know that's not true. Like, you still continue, like, new levels, new devils. There's always a new challenge. How do you continually push yourself at where you're at today to reinvent, like you said, in 2025 and to have these new amazing things coming?
A couple of things. First of all, I want to say something that I think is really important. My dad taught me a lesson when I was little, and for anybody that's just starting out, or you know, I want you to always remember what I tell myself every day. You can't lose what you don't have. And that is really what got me through every different phase of trying something new to go to the next level. Well, I'm not at that level. So, I mean, if I don't get there, I'm not going to lose anything. I don't have it to lose it. Right.
Yeah.
So that attitude has always like, well, why not? Like, let's just try it. I don't, I haven't arrived. I'm never, I don't think I ever will. But that you can't lose what you don't have always gave me the freedom to just play at a level that I don't know that I was ready for.
Mm.
And holding it just loosely. Not being in my identity is not in the company. It's not in whether I fail or I don't fail. Like
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I don't mean to sound flippant, but who cares? I mean, at the end of my life, I mean, no one's going to be there but me. I mean, when I stand before God, it's going to be me and him. I don't answer to anybody listening to this podcast or anybody that's following my company or has an opinion about it. You're not going to be there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so I think about all of my decisions in light of that, of what I feel like is my path and what I'm called to do, not what anyone else is. Um, and as far as getting to the next level, I never have and will never feel like I have arrived anywhere. I feel the same inside now as I did probably like, I don't know, year 3, once I got,
Mhm.
back into a house. And that feeling is what's next. How can I grow? How can I evolve? How can I be a better version tomorrow than I was yesterday?
Mhm.
And if someone said, you've built a $400 million company, how do you feel? I would 99.9% sure I would tell you I feel the same. I'm proud of what I've built and I'm excited for the future. And I'll never arrive until I stand before God, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect perspective. It's so easy to get distracted by other people's opinions or the fear of failure. But I think once you've already felt like you've been burned by the fire, like you've been forged in the fire from early on, I mean, what else is left but to keep going forward no matter what?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so good. I love your dad's advice. I know you're a mom, you're a busy mom, you've got all these things going on. How do you try to instill similar advice into your own family?
Okay. I'm going to give you my secret for being a mom of 3, being married for 21 years, and building a company, and trying to do whatever they say, do it all. I don't believe in balancing. So if you think about balancing,
Mhm.
what do you think about standing on one foot? You're going to fall. Like if you hold something, it's going to drop. Like
Yeah.
balancing is a myth. And I realized somewhere along the way that I believe in blending, not balancing.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is I am always a mom. I am always a wife, and I am always a business owner. It doesn't matter if I'm at a field trip or I'm in a board meeting or I am on a date. I am still all of those things at the same time. So how can I balance them? I can't. And so I realized that is like my secret sauce is I've learned to blend them all. And what I mean by that is I've learned to walk on the treadmill when I have a meeting, if I need to take care of my health. I've learned how to fit in a call in a parking lot waiting for my daughter to come out. I've learned how to just blend it all and not try to balance it all, because there's no sustainable balancing.
Mhm.
And I could not have made it for 13 years balancing it. And
Mhm.
that's a myth. And so I don't know if that analogy makes sense for
Yeah.
you, but blending has been my secret sauce.
I absolutely love that. I've never heard anyone say that before. I agree. I always say balance is just complete BS. It doesn't
It is.
exist. And I feel like balance plays into this idea of like everything's an equal sum game. Like if you
Yes.
give 60 over here, it means you can only give 40 over here.
Huh?
And that's not true. at all. You
Yeah.
can give 100 both places. I think when you're committed to personal growth, personal development, business development, whatever, like when you're a high achiever in one area of your life, you tend to be a high achiever in the other areas as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I really came to this conclusion when I was putting on makeup one day. And I was blending my makeup and I was like, this is what makes like things pretty is blending. It's like art.
Yeah.
It's not a science. And I love analogies. And I learn things in life through weird things like walking on the beach, putting on makeup, baking dinner. Like I don't know, I just like the learn lessons about how to live in doing simple acts. And one day I was just blending my makeup and I'm like, this is how I live my life. I blend everything.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So good. So what other advice would you give for parents listening that are building a business and they're like, okay, Kelly, I get it. I'm going to blend, but there's like, I have too many things to blend. How did you learn to
Mhm,
say no to certain things? Like, did you have a rule about what was a yes and what was a no?
100%. Um, I I read, I think I'm a little bit weird in some ways that I was reading books on marriage before I was even dating. And I was really obsessed with John Gottman's work on the 7 principles of marriage. And um, I knew that I had to put my husband and his relationship with him first before my kids, which is so counterintuitive because I'm such a mom. But I protected my time with my husband because I felt like if
Mhm.
we got divorced and I was going to have a really big issue with my kids, and that was the best gift that I could try to give them. So I prioritized my relationship with my husband and first, and that has not been easy. It sounds easy, but it's not. And then I always choose my kids over business because I felt like if I lost the business, at the end of the day, like what I cared most about was being a good mom.
Yeah.
And that was really my priority. So I never lost sight of my priorities with, my husband, my marriage, and my kids. The business could be gone tomorrow and I would feel like an accomplished human because I have such a good relationship with my kids. And I was never willing to compromise that. I could build back anything, but you
Mhm.
can't recreate your family. So
Mhm.
that I would just say, like, it at the end of the day, you got to make money to eat, but family is everything.
Yeah. Do you work with your husband?
I do not with my husband. He actually lives in South Carolina 4 days a week, and I live in North Carolina. He has an apartment there. He runs a home building company, and I do this, and I think it works for us. But no, I need to be in charge, so that would not work for him.
It's a whole nother way of doing things. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I've got a couple more questions for you. This is so helpful. I love that. I'm going to write that down for my own well-being and my own family. I agree with all that so much. All right. A couple lightning round questions, Kelly. First is I give you 2 hours back in your day to use as you wish. And you're going to use them on an income generating activity. What are you going to do?
On an income, wow, this is a good lightning round. I am going to honestly, I'm gonna probably put some time into social media and marketing. 2 hours. Well, that's probably gonna take me an hour and a half. And the other 30 minutes, I'm going to develop patterns and prints because I think that's really where our strength is.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hardest lesson, best lesson you've had to learn in business.
Um, Ooh, that's a really hard one. I think hiring for culture, and I know you've heard that, but specifically, there's a book by Patrick Lencioni is called The Ideal Team Player.
Hmm.
And there are 3 things that I've learned. You've got to hire somebody that is humble, somebody that is smart, and somebody that is hungry. And if you can hire a person that embodies those 3 things, you're going to get a good teammate and it is going to help multiply the business and it's going to do it quickly.
That's so good. We're going to link that up in the show notes. I've not heard of that book, but that is it's a really good analogy. It's very true. All right. I know you said your dad's advice. You shared your dad's advice earlier, but I would ask, what is the best business advice you've received that sticks with you?
Mm. Besides that, you can't lose what you don't have. Um, well, I haven't received a lot of good business advice because I never had a mentor doing this, which is part of the reason I'm doing this podcast so that I can change that story for somebody else.
Mm.
But um man, I would say the watch your debt. Like I had a woman tell me one time she was a debt-free company and she said not having debt was like the best, most like freedom life-giving thing she chose. And all I hear about is raising venture capital all the time. And we're a debt-free company. And it just gives you such a sense of freedom. Like if you don't have a bad month, you don't have a huge overhead to pay. I poured back into the company for 10 years, all the profit, and being debt free has been really, really free.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that was really good advice.
That is really good advice. I think a lot of people, Dave Ramsey always sticks with me. There's a time for debt, but I totally agree.
Yeah.
Related to selling wholesale, what do you, as you look across like the most successful retailers that carry your product, what do they have in common?
They are active on social, and they engage with their customer base. They know their customers, and they interact with them, and they have a presence, whether it's on the web, on social, or store events, but they're very active with their customer base.
Mm-hmm. Building a community, relationships, all
Yes,
those pieces.
very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's one business metric that you live by? And you have to know this metric at all times.
Margin, 100% margin. I mean, for as creative as I am, numbers are like everything. Because if you're not making money, then it's what's the point long term? Like you're not going to be around. So understanding your margin numbers are huge. And for me, like what goes into that margin? Like what it's not just what you buy it for,
Mhm.
it's what you have to market it. Do you have to do a photo shoot? Do you have to put PA people to put it on the web?
Yeah.
Every single product has a cost associated to it, not just what you buy it for. And knowing all of those numbers is the margin is everything.
Yeah. What's one metric that you wish you knew more about?
Right now,
Mm-hmm.
Cost of acquisition of new customers.
Yeah.
It's difficult to like tease that out, both wholesale and e-commerce, like going to shows, like how many new customers we get at a show versus what they spend versus, how much we should pay on marketing. Acquiring new customers is difficult, like to get those costs nailed down for me.
Yeah. Especially someone like you, I mean, being e-commerce, I know you set up primarily at home and gift markets, but I see you at apparel markets as well. You're kind of all over the market space, rep groups, all the things. I could definitely see
Yeah.
that. All right. Best advice for retailers listening in general.
Test, always test. And if it's working today, it may not work tomorrow. So have ideas in line of what you want to test and constantly research like things you could be doing differently, apps out there, like the technology is constantly changing. And if it is working, celebrate that it's working, but be prepared for it to stop working. Always be a few steps ahead and have ideas of things that you can be learning.
Yeah, so good. Testing. All right, last question, and this is the big question that you've shared so much today. I think above all, as I'm listening to your entire story, the common thread is just it's not about selling the product. The product is so secondary to everything else you're doing, right? On this journey. So if you fast forward 20, 30 years from now and you're sitting on the front porch and it's your kids and your grandkids and your friends, your family, and you're all looking back at this incredible road that you've been down, the highs, the lows, the bumps, the losing your house, all of it. As you look back, what's the thing that you want them all to remember most about you, the person you are, and the journey that you've been on?
I think I want them to know that I never settled.
Mm.
If I felt like God put it in my path, I went for it. And it was never about failing or succeeding. It was always just about, living out my fullest potential.
Mm.
And whether that, is running $100 million company or whether that's working for somebody and making $50,000 a year, I want them to know that I lived my potential and I would want them to want to live their potential and walk their path and be proud of it and do it to the best of their ability and live it with passion and leave it all on the court and then go take a nap.
I love that. I love that so much. If you're going to clean toilets, clean it with the best of them. But whatever you're going to do,
Yeah,
do it right.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly. Yeah, I read that, one of my favorite stories in the Bible is that parable of the talents, and it stuck
Yes.
with me my whole life. And it's like, if God gives you 10, that's what He's expecting of you, and if He gives you one, He's expecting that of you. And just walk your own path and live your potential, and don't worry about everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been incredible. Kelly, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with me today and sharing your story. I can't wait to get to see you at a market soon. We'll link up all your information in the show notes today so everyone can know you, contact you, get to build a relationship with you in the brand. But congratulations on all the fire that you've walked through and just the incredible brands that you've built. It's really fun to watch.
Thank you, Ashley. This has been awesome. It's been super fun. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you took away all kinds of nuggets and new ideas from this week's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. We love to hear your feedback and give you a chance to be featured on the show each and every week. For more information on our spirit of community over competition and to access guest downloads and bonuses and all the resources we talked about on the show, head on over to theboutiquehub.com and join the community. We'll see you next week.